Imagine a world where men and women didn't have access to reproductive health care. Imagine the fate of society's most vulnerable men and women if they didn't have access to reproductive choice, STI screenings, or pregnancies, and prenatal care. How many of you or your loved ones utilized or benefited from the services of Planned Parenthood? Well, I know that I moved out when I was 15 years old, and along with moving out, comes responsibility, and I had to care for my reproductive health. So I certainly have utilized Planned Parenthood as well as many of my friends. According to PlannedParenthood.org, they help serve over 500 million people around the world yearly. They help prevent almost 600,000 unintended pregnancies and offer more than 4 million tests for STIs treatments and gynecological cancers. Well, currently, many Republicans are pushing to try and defund Planned Parenthood and ban their services completely. History has shown that a lack of reproductive care has led to an increase in poverty, disease, and crime. Planned Parenthood currently will accept people without health insurance who otherwise would lack from or suffer from lack of treatment. They treat current outbreaks in the population and prevent the further spread of infection. They do this through treating current outbreaks as well as screening for things like cervical cancer, breast cancer, which is really relevant in the Bay Area, especially right now. They also treat men for screening for prostate cancer and skin cancer. Planned Parenthood improves the quality of life by giving reproductive choice. In society, survival as a single mother living in poverty is very difficult. They can struggle for food, housing, money, just to make basic ends meet. Not only does this affect her, but it also affects her family too. It's harder for an increase in children living in poverty because it means more expenses, less food, less money to pay for good nutrition, good education, and ultimately this can lead to more poverty. According to the economist and author Stephen Lieb, he wrote this book Freakonomics and was an author. He states that as soon as abortion became legalized in the 1970s, we saw crime 20 years later rapidly start decreasing. He attributes this to the legalization of abortion because, as you know, in the 1960s, when abortion wasn't legalized, the summer of love, people having sex, and oops, they're getting pregnant, but don't have access to reproductive health care, to reproductive choice. So therefore, a lot of women were having unwanted babies, and so they couldn't give them good education and care for them. So crime rapidly went up in the 80s. Planned Parenthood offers affordable health care services such as contraception, abortion, prenatal care, and other resources freely without questioning the ability to pay or discriminating of who you are. Planned Parenthood also improves the quality of lives for people because they can screen mothers for alcohol and drug use, smoking, and STIs, which can be passed to babies in utero. It's a horrible thing, to be born into this world addicted to drugs or already have some sort of infection. Well, according to Weep.org, California right now has one of the bottom rankings for women without insurance. There's a lot of women suffering here right now. Well, now that I've shown you how Planned Parenthood serves individuals in society alike, I'd like to propose a method on how to keep their services available. You can donate money, you can volunteer for protesting for them, or protesting for their continued government budget, or tell others about them. The issue is that many conservatives want to see Planned Parenthood defunded or shut down. Among one of the arguments offered is that they don't want to have to pay for the irresponsible reproductive choices of others. So the argument goes that reproductive freedom should also entail reproductive responsibility and self-reliance. Additionally, a lot of Republicans are morally opposed to abortion and even birth control, which Planned Parenthood does provide. Planned Parenthood is funded through tax dollars, which ultimately we are paying for. So they feel coerced into funding an organization that they don't necessarily believe in. The counter-argument is simple. If the government did what everyone unanimously was accepting, there would be no government, right? They can't make everybody happy. I'm opposed to certain aspects of defense spending, for example, but I accept the idea that the government must make the utilitarian compromise to increase the general well-being of society as a whole. This necessity entails supportive actions that not everyone agrees with. The overriding utilitarian truth is that STI prevention, pregnancy prevention, reproductive cancer, and screening is better for society as a whole. Who wants to go back to living in a world where we don't have options for unintended pregnancies, or don't have treatment for STIs? We should all actively support Planned Parenthood, not only to save lives with disease prevention and treatment, but also to improve the quality of life for everyone. Without Planned Parenthood, there would be a massive increase in sexually transmitted infections, reproductive cancers, and unwanted pregnancy, a rise in poverty, and ultimately crime. These healthcare problems greatly alter the lives of people who suffer with them. Some are deadly, and all are an ultimately unwanted burden on society. The solution I propose depicts a clear and more valuable benefit to the greater good of our society. Now imagine that Planned Parenthood was defunded completely here in California, that we didn't have access to them. Well, this just happened in Texas. You guys have any questions?